Okay, so let's take a quick look at the Ibox hardware. Okay, this is TB1, and that's your input power connector. And any power, AC or DC power from 20 to 60 volts is acceptable for the Ibox to power it. So you have a input power range 20 to 60 volt DC. Your positive terminal, the negative terminal, and this is the chassis ground. The Ibox has 3 RS-232 ports, COM 1, 2, and 3. And these COM ports can also be configured in software to be RS-45 ports. This is your Westmate port. Westmate is basically, it's a RS-232 type of, it's a serial standard that's, basically it's RS-232 standard, but it's pinned out differently. So the cable that you use on your Westmate port here is different than the cable that you use here. This is your standard RS-232 cable. This is not a non-standard pinout, so don't mix the cables. The Westmate cable is used here. The regular RS-232 DB9 type standard cables are used here, and they're not interchangeable, so don't mix them up. You can run into problems. Over on the other side, this is TB2, and I don't know if you can see there are 2-pin connectors, and that's your digital inputs. DI1 is these 2 pins, DI2, DI3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So there's your 8 digital inputs that can be used either for status or for counters or accumulator, depending on how you configure the input and what you need on your configuration. The next connector is power. Then you have ground and your master for your close and trips on down here. And we'll look at these terminals in more detail in a second. Okay, so here we brought up a close view of the terminal strip. And these are your DIs running here, 1 through 8. The input for the DI point and the common is on the second terminal of each of these little individual connectors. So you can run this one common out to, say, a relay rack and run all 8 digital inputs, which are the odd numbered pins. Or if you want to look at it as pins 1 and 2, it's always pin 1 is the input, pin 2 is the common. So you only need one common because they're all the same. This is the wetting or field voltage inputs, and it's not polarity sensitive, and that's on TB10. So you can wire plus and minus either way you want here. These, or an Ibox needs to be ordered with whatever field voltage you want to wire to this. And they can be ordered in 24 volt, 48 volt, and 125 volt DC. So basically there's inline resistors with these the input point, and the current is limited. Those resistors are calculated to limit the current to about 5 milliamps. Okay, on past the wetting voltage connection. This connection here is for your chassis ground. Again, this connection is for the voltage that's going to be applied out of your normally open contacts for your control points. So this voltage is common to all of your control point outputs. So if you had different devices that needed different voltages, you're going to need to use interposing relays, because this voltage is going to be the same. So it comes, like if you're going to operate a close on point 1, for example, the voltage comes in here. When the contact operates, it's going to appear out of this terminal. The first terminal is a closed terminal. A trip on close 1 or on control point 1, the voltage is applied in this terminal, and it's going to come out this terminal, and so on for all the different control points. Okay, let's take a closer look at the COM port side of the iBox. Again, here's your power connector, TB1. You can see plus, minus, and system ground. Here's your 3 DB9 terminals, or connectors, for your 3 COM ports that can be configured for RS-232 or RS-45. You also have indicator lights in here for like carrier detect, request to send, receive data, transmit data, and clear to send. So you do have indicating lights on each COM port. This COM port here is, again, that's the Westmate port, and it is configured differently. The wiring is different, so the cables shall not be interchanged. Let's take a look inside the iBox. Okay, looking inside, here's the main fuse for your input power, and this is your battery. Here's the flash or code file version on this particular iBox. Is denoted as SAX0001-07, and that's on U5. And then U4, this chip here is your boot ROM chip, and it's important because there are several different boot ROM versions, and it needs to match your flash file. So you may need to check with GE to find out which code files are compatible with which boot ROMs. This battery, the location of that, this is a little clip here. You put a screwdriver under the edge here and pry out lightly. Of course, have power disconnected when you do that. And you can remove the battery. You may need to do that if you get a mismatch of the configuration or some other problem that causes problems when the iBox boots. So removing this battery will remove, if you leave it out for 10 minutes, will erase the configuration, the downloadable configuration. It's not going to erase the flash. So you're going to be doing that when you get into trouble, which won't happen very often, but when it does happen, being able to erase that configuration that's causing a problem is a lifesaver.